So Indian classical music is an oral tradition. It's not a written score. For generations, for years, it's passed down from teacher to student, from gurus to students, father to sons, fathers to daughters. Initially, it was extremely within family kind of like heirlooms. You know, it was only passed on to family members, but gradually disciples were accepted, disciples were taught, and this was an art form which was patronized only by royalty back in the day. It was not open to the common man, so to speak. And it's only in the maybe late 50s that from the royal courts it went to a little larger gatherings that eventually reached concert halls. And today, I mean, this art form's at the peak of its powers, with Indian classical music being represented in the biggest of venues all over the world, including some very outside-the-box festivals like Lollapalooza as well. So this art form is also very closely associated with spirituality. The very evolution of the 12 notes in India were very closely associated, or it was part of the evolution which we call Nad Brahma, which was the sacred sound of the planets, the sacred sound of the soul, and each and every musical note is to have a positive effect on the body, mind and soul. So that's why when we perform, for us it's like meditation. When we perform, when we're practicing, it's actually like praying. We remove our shoes, we pray to our instruments, we believe in the power of blessings, we believe in the power of good wishes. All of that matters, because you could just be brilliant and do acrobats on your instrument, but yet have no effect to the listener. So a lot of the musicians today who have been blessed and who are in the concert circle perhaps are not doing acrobats, but they're doing something which is appealing with the audience. So the language of vibration, the language of connecting through a medium that you cannot see, that's all a part of it. It's all a part of it. And I'm a very humble representative of that world. And obviously, I think classical music, interestingly, I think has organically, it has adapted to changing times without, I think, making too many changes to its purity. It's adapted to even 2025. It's adapted to change, to streaming, to everything today. So so that's what it is.
Thank you, Ayaan. Let me ask you a personal question first. Did you always know you wanted to become a musician? I think you're coming from obviously lineage of renowned artists and musicians. But did you always know that you wanted to become a musician?
See, when they throw you in the ocean, you have to swim, right? So I think the thing is that I was very blessed to be born in a family where, music was the language spoken. For generations, we've been musicians in my family, and we still play compositions of my great-grandfather, my grandfather, of course my father, and so that's how it is. But before I knew it, there was a little small instrument kept in my lap, and I was strumming it, I think. And before I knew it, I was on stage. So I don't think I could have done anything better. This was something I loved to do, and that's very important. But I must say that I'm not a big fan of people who kind of flaunt legacy or flaunt generations of music in their family. I think what really matters is what you deliver on stage. You could have musicians who didn't come from musical backgrounds, and they were at the peak of their powers, and they changed the face of the music industry. So that's why I think who you are, what your legacy is, what your lineage is, all of that matters through your craft and through what you deliver. All of that is, of course, an added bonus. You grow up with that environment. You're very blessed to do that because music is the greatest wealth I've had in my family, and it's just passed on literally like you teach a kid how to eat food or drink water.
Thank you. No, I thought I just wanted to ask that, so sharing. So the other, I think, next question for me is I wanted to go a bit around. I think, as you said, music is adapting to time. I think you have literally done amazing collaborations globally. How do you see, I think, this adaptation of music? You had a whole morning session on artificial intelligence, and I think there was a discussion yesterday on how AI is threatening some of this or enhancing it. I think both perspectives exist, but would be interested to get your perspective around, how is music changing over time? How will classical music evolve?
I think listeners today have become far more open-minded. Perhaps a little earlier, listeners were a little more rigid. They would not be very open to too much experimentation. But I think the biggest of names in our industry, I think they're all very open to experimentation and collaborations. And collaborations are extremely important because it's giving a very larger message, which sometimes we are unable to deliver politically as well. I mean, there are times we have collaborated with musicians, we don't even speak the same language, but they hold their instruments and we hold our instrument, and we are able to give a concert without conversing through words. It's conversing through music. So a lot of our collaborations are peace-driven. The projects are called, names like Peace Worshippers or Strings for Peace or Soul Strings, because I think we as a family want to communicate the message of unity, love, and diversity in a larger way through the 12 notes of music, which are universal. And so much interesting work is now happening in the field. AI being, I think, the newbie in the block. I think, luckily, the sound of my instrument hasn't been reproduced yet. So I hope it doesn't happen. But I'm sure it will at some point. But AI, I think, used the right way is, of course, something which is welcomed. I think that now a lot of platforms and a lot of music labels have their own distinctive opinions on what to use and what to not use of AI. But like recently I was told that an artist who's not around, his voice was used through AI to sing for a film background song. And the revenue or the fee collected or fee decided was given to the family of that artist who was no more. And they were in need because after this artist was gone, I mean, the family was struggling for various reasons. So something like this is a noble thing to do. And AI used in this manner, I think, is wonderful. But obviously we need to, obviously a human being is a human being, feelings and emotions, which is what our music is all about. I mean, what we kind of adapt to the environment. We don't have, like I said, because we don't have a fixed score. There are many times when we sit on stage thinking we're going to play this piece. While we're tuning, we absorb the energy of the room and we just change what we had decided to play something else, which usually is the vibe of the room. So you have to, so these things, the heart plays a big role, the mind plays a big role. So AI is definitely doing some very amazing, interesting things of us seeing a world that we wouldn't have seen. I mean, I've been seeing such interesting content where I saw Mr. Ratan Tata, because we had a Taj, and Mahatma Gandhi sitting together. So stuff like that. It's interesting. I mean, it's your imagination. It's sky's the limit.
No, absolutely. I think both sides are very clear, and obviously, if used properly, could always enhance, and I completely agree with you. But at the same time, it's still hard to imagine, even from the morning session, how emotion or that whole improvisation, which is so unique in the concept, can be reproduced. I agree with that. I would also like to talk a bit more now about the social initiatives you work on. I think you mentioned the peace initiative. You work various initiatives around peace, global peace, unity. So could you maybe give some examples of the collaborations you've done there?
I mean, well, there have been many. You want me to mention the artists we work with, or just the organizations? So I think the basic structure of Indian classical music is a set rule of ascending and descending notes. So it's freedom, but within discipline, which is most important even as a way of life, I think. So, yeah, I think that the journey was something that my father started with his involvement with organizations like UNICEF, Spastic Society of India. In fact, my first concert as a 6-year-old, where I was a part of an orchestra my father had composed for UNICEF's 40th anniversary. So I think compassion is a very integral part of our craft, and we feel extremely sad to see the kind of unpleasant activities that happen in the world, all over the world, in different regions of the world. So that's why if music is the language of love, if music is the language of the soul, we just feel it's the best way to communicate it. And along with the beliefs of Mahatma Gandhi, that be the change you want to see. I think all of that put together really has been a big force of our initiative to reach out to organizations. My brother and I recently also made an album called We for Love, which was to raise awareness for Kailash Satyarthi, the Nobel laureate's Justice for Every Child campaign. So it was important to talk about this, important to raise awareness, because every day you're raising awareness to new people.
Thank you, Anne. I think the other thing I want to touch upon, you mentioned that musical performance is like a meditation, right? It's a spiritual process. Could you explain that a little bit? I think we took the group yesterday to Bangla Sahib. I think as a group, we went there. I think it obviously, we have a few spiritual sessions in this week, but I think it's just fascinating how, music as spirituality, maybe you could talk a bit about that.
I mean, spirituality, I think, is in itself such a personal journey. It's your own way of, kind of reaching out to an energy, a power, or whatever you want to call it, which is very unique to each and every human being. It's their own kind of journey. So, music today, be it classical, be it even Western classical music, anything, it's used as therapy. It's been proved that listening to music, plants grow in a healthier way. Animals are kind of in a healthier environment listening to music. I mean, women, when they are expecting, have listening to music, it's all therapy. It's extremely important and good for the mind of the newborn. So it's now been realized that many diseases are cured. There are a lot of medical platforms in India that indeed know even which raga to listen to for what ailment. That is like level 2 or level 3 of the research being done. So for us, I mean, there's a healing effect from music in general, which I believe, and that's why I think if you see in all religions the way of connecting through hymns and carols, through bhajans, through shabads, it's all music at the end of the day. In fact, in Sikhism, their prayer songs are very, it's conveyed what raga each shabad should be in. That itself is the effect and the research of ragas and combination of notes and of music.
Thank you, Anne. I think I have one more question. I think yesterday we heard a small concert which was combining these two schools of music, Hindustani music and Southern Indian music. So could you explain give us a bit of an overview of what's the difference between the two and how they compare Western schools of music?
So India is the only country where we have two systems of classical music, from the north and from the south. The system in the north is more leaning towards improvisation, and whereas they do improvise down south as well, but it's more song oriented. Songs in praise of gods and goddesses, kritis as they call it. And there were saint musicians down south like Tyagaraja, Shama Shastri, Muktaswami Dikshita, all these great saint musicians were there. They developed this art form down south, but now there are beautiful kind of collaborations between North Indian and South Indian musicians has been happening for years now, actually. The scales or ragas that we have, they might have some names which are common, but some names which are different as well. So, but again, it's one big family. I mean, I think the source is the same, the seed is the same. They're all like tributaries of, the same river.
Thank you. I thought that would be useful because we heard that yesterday. Thank you. So I would now like to open it up for questions from the audience. Are there any questions, please?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Luana Genot. I came all the way from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm listening to your songs now. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your talent with the humanity.
Thank you.
So, as someone who carries like a deep tradition in music, so how can you balance, for example, the tradition and with like innovation? Because in Brazil, a lot of Brazilian artists are, especially when they come from music families, they are struggling in carrying the tradition, but also fighting against like auto-tune or other, innovations to praise like the audience. So I would like to hear your thoughts about carrying the tradition, but also innovating, and also if you have done some collaborations with international artists as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. You see, in order to know where you're going, it's very important to know where you're coming from. I think that's extremely important. So I have always balanced out collaborative projects along with my traditional journey of music. So, and that's again a kind of a call I took because I enjoy collaborations, but having said that, along with that, what the base is, what the source is, and who I am, it's very important to keep that active as well. So I think you as an artist know what that balancing factor is, what to not do and how much of what to do. I think that's a personal take every artist has, but I think you have to balance the two worlds. And I say this a lot, that in order to be contemporary, you don't have to murder tradition. They can all coexist at the same time. And artists today, I think I've been very fortunate to have worked with some brilliant artists, including a wonderful Brazilian singer, Claudia Acuna. We recently did an album called Sand and Foam with her, and so many great musicians like Joe Walsh, Derek Trucks. And what I learned from all these people is just how to be humble, how to have all that humility in spite of achieving what they have. And that's something I really tell musicians who are much younger to me when they say, what's the way forward? I mean, there is no way forward. There's no formula to how to make it in our field. I mean, you just practice and leave the rest to God. That's all you can do. But the point is that what I have seen and what I believe in is that humility is extremely important. And that humility shows in your music, that grace will show in your craft, in your music.
Thank you.
I mean, these are just my 2 cents.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. Hi, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm Preeti. And I think my question is around apprenticeship, or the lack of apprenticeship that most arts are facing these days, right? What is your take on that, and what would you like your legacy to be in the wake of this sort of declining approach to apprenticeship?
You see, patronage has been always important for the art world. I mean, be it any art form, it always had patrons. Obviously, once, like I said, when the royalty quotient went away, then it moved eventually to corporate houses, and that's still happening today, which is wonderful because a lot of corporate houses do music festivals now. They come on board as sponsors and everything, which, you see, it's very important of how you present an art form. And that's a little bit of a discussion I have sometimes with certain organizations. Sometimes you want to perform and it should be presented the right way. It's not just about the art form, it's how it's even projected, how it's presented. All of that matters. It matters. So today I think a lot of kind of forums and a lot of big multinational companies and companies, they've been extremely wonderful in patronizing art and culture, which is wonderful. And even organizations like Google all over here. I mean, we are performing. Google has their own orchestra, which is very interesting, and they will be performing my father's concerto with them end of this month. So we're looking forward to that, and that's wonderful. That a company like Google has their own orchestra. I mean, they do say that learning music, the chances of you maybe making a human being compassionate are more. That's what they say. Please.
I'm Paira from Mongolia. My question is how you collaborate, you and the traditional music, with big music platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music. Because coming from Mongolia, we also have very nice traditional Sarod singing, and the problem is that they use unlicensed, what do you call it, and then there's, of course, as much as we appreciate that they're spreading our heritage, but there is this fairness issue and there's lots of this patents and copyright issues. So how you also sort of navigate that you want to use the bigger platform but also have the sort of fair process?
Well, the saddest part for the musician today is that we have nothing, we don't have albums to gift because earlier now for some releases they might make vinyls or whatever. But yes, we've all adapted to the world of streaming, to the world of the cyber world to share our music. The point is that now the good thing it's done is that musicians now don't have to rely just on labels. You can just release your music yourself. The main issue for years most creative people had is that how do we let people know about what we are doing? So that has been sorted out now, and today, even if you're sitting in a remote town, you could be heard by someone sitting in Mongolia or Brazil or in LA, wherever you are. So I think the problem of people having an issue with being heard is gone. Being heard and becoming famous is also, the whole followers culture, all of that is crept into every field now. But again, it's very important to be connected to the real world. Because, followers will not make me a greater musician. Of course, it's fine, we're all part of the game. We use these platforms to reach out, to connect with our listeners and all of that. But now, I think your question about copyright issues and all of that, it's mainly there to protect the artist from what they've created. I think if the paperwork's done the right way, it should not be a problem, and we can at least hear artists from any part of the world today through these streaming platforms. And when we collaborate, it depends on which artists we are collaborating with. Some artists can improvise, some can't. With a lot of Western classical musicians, we have a written score. So that's us coming out of our comfort zone as well. But we keep windows open for our improvisation bit to come in. But their entire part is written down. But that's something I really respect, that you are actually playing someone else's music with the same emotion, with the same depth, with the same feeling which is required. So that really amazes me, and I think it's wonderful how big orchestras play such traditional music with so much empathy, grace, and depth.
Well, this is, I'm sure some of you have heard the live Indian classical concerts, but the improvisation, it's just amazing when you have those free times. And if you compare that to, say, I've grown up in Germany, so going to a Western orchestra, which is obviously, it's also amazing, but it's that kind of structured nature. Although it's structured because it's written down, obviously it's also improvised. But it's amazing to see the difference. Maybe one last question, please.
Thank you. Brittany from the United States. One of the fundamental cultural moments from the Western perspective was during the 1960s when the Beatles introduced sitar and Indian classical music into their music. I'm wondering, can you talk, my understanding of that is profoundly Western influence, and so I'm wondering, can you talk, did that have the same impact over here. Did the Beatles like mean that much? Did the introduction of sitar mean that much? And if B, is there any modern day examples where these two types of musical things can combine?
You see, the 60s, I mean, that was special. I mean, it was India being discovered, it was, Maharishi, it was the Beatles coming here, and so that impact is irreplaceable. I mean, the realization of the sitar back then, and the realization of India in a class. I think all of this happened before chicken tikka masala became famous, So all of that happened. I don't think anything at par of that magnitude happened, but in its own gradual process, many artists did crossover projects after that. And it continues, I mean, we have great names in India where they work with very big artists from the West. But I don't think, you see that George Harrison learning sitar was also a very big example of what the teacher-student equation is. I mean, he was a very kind of a committed student to his guru, the great Pandit Ravi Shankar. So, that kind of opened a lot of avenues, a lot of windows, and ever since, a whole lot of collaborations have happened. But like I said, the impact of what happened back then is very difficult to kind of replace it with something which happened now. Over the period of time, so many musicians, including Ed Sheeran, he's here. I mean, he's collaborating with not classical musicians, but Bollywood singers and stuff like that. Times are different now. So I think a lot of collaborations are happening, but that was the kind of window that, or the gateway that opened its doors to collaborations.
Thank you, Ayaan. I think that this was brilliant, so we really appreciate it.
Since we spoke about the Beatles when we were recording with Joe Walsh, so we were recording the whole day, and that album came out during the lockdown as a tribute to the frontline workers and the doctors. It was called Prayers. So I did, and at the end of the session, I was very fortunate to have met Ringo Starr. I did not know that Joe Walsh's wife and Ringo Starr's wife were sisters. So it was wonderful to meet the man, I mean, who was just looking brilliant, and peace and love, peace and love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next time I'll perform for all of you, and we'll make some music collectively. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day.